Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. Happy Thursday. We are talking about two different areas for storms on land, and then we've got storms out in the Atlantic as well that we'll talk about. We'll talk about Humberto. We'll talk about potentially Imelda coming up soon as well. All right, the storm risk today is mainly along the East Coast. So we've got a cold front moving through, and that's going to cause a wind and tornado risk in this area. You go out to the west into places like Arizona. This is where your flash flood and your hail threat will be. We'll talk about the hail size potential that we could see today, and then we'll talk about the flood threat as well. I think one of the biggest things that we'll talk about today is Tropical Storm Humberto and then potentially Imelda forming over the next few days. So it's not called Imelda quite yet. However, it's a 90% chance we're so close to getting that next named tropical storm. All right, here's Gabrielle right now. You know, we've been talking about Gabrielle for about a week now, maybe a little bit more than that. It's a Category 1 hurricane moving to the east, not mainly a fish storm right now, not too much to worry about other than some outer islands in the northern Atlantic. Humberto at the moment, you can see that spinning as a tropical storm named yesterday. I told you this forecast yesterday, I said in 24 hours we were going to have a tropical storm. Look at us now. We have that next tropical storm that is going to move up to the north and west. Where is it going to go? Here's your spaghetti model plots. You can see that these two storms just about parallel each other as they move to the north and west. Now they get pretty close to land, and we're really watching that track as this storm, currently AL94, soon to be Imelda. This is what we're really watching as it gets closer and closer and closer to the U.S. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we go throughout the next few days. We'll talk more about that here in just a few minutes. Hey, by the way, if you don't have tickets to RoofCon yet, go ahead and type in your phone roofcon.com/2025-Oklahoma. Derek Klein is speaking next Monday at RoofCon, and if you haven't heard Derek speak, you absolutely want to. He's a phenomenal speaker. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take a look at what we saw yesterday. So yesterday we were really watching for storms anywhere from the southeastern portion of the U.S. up to the Midwest. The main threat yesterday was that wind threat, but we saw a hail threat very isolated in there as well. And that's kind of what we got yesterday. You know, we got those severe thunderstorm warnings, but the hail was few and far between. So moving on to what we can see today, that cold front continues to cause havoc across the eastern portion of the U.S. We're going to pivot a little bit to the northeast at this point. We're talking about places like New York and Washington, right along our New England states. You can see that cold front with several low pressure systems, surface low pressure systems, that are trying to move across the East Coast. We've got some rain ongoing right now, but I'm really watching for storms later on today to take a look at that severe risk. Out to the west, we're pretty dry at the moment. However, that's going to change later on today as well, as we have a flash flood threat in this area. Current temperatures, warmer than yesterday, still cooler for this time of the year. We're at 78 here in Oklahoma City, 77 in Kansas City. It feels like fall out there. However, it will warm back up later on this weekend. We're going to get warmer weather. I know, it's not going to feel like fall for long. Let's talk about the hail risk today. We're talking about a hail risk out in Arizona today. So for all of those storms on the East Coast, not worried about hail. That'll be a wind and tornado threat. Where we're watching for that hail risk are those areas highlighted there in yellow. So we're talking about Arizona, Phoenix, Tucson, Arizona. Let's zoom down. Let's see how large can the hail get here. So what you're looking for is you're looking for yellow or maybe even some orange colors. Usually if we can get into the orange, we could get up to golf ball size hail. I think it's a very low risk for that type of large hail today. You can see that we've got some orange trying to mix in along I-17 and I-40 there. Let's take a look at the max hail size for today. I did go golf ball today, but I think it's going to be extremely isolated. So if we get that larger hailstone, we may have like one report. Everything else will most likely be smaller hail or even high wind. Let's put some cities on the map here. Flagstaff, that was the city that we were talking about. Maybe some larger hail right here. Maybe I should have added that orange polygon right around Flagstaff. We'll have to see what happens later on today. Phoenix, it's a low risk for hail today, and Tucson also a low risk for hail. But I think that wind will be a bigger threat for everyone today. So if we put our wind map on the board, you can see that we extend that map all the way up to Cedar City into places like southern Nevada and southern Utah. You can also see that we've got a wind risk for Flagstaff, Phoenix, and Tucson as well. We also have a wind risk out on the East Coast, so we're almost bi-coastal here with our storm risk today. Columbia, South Carolina, to Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and New York, all included in that high wind risk today. I think a lot of people jumped on, however, to look at the tornado risk on the East Coast. So let's go ahead and pop that up on the board. We're going to go up to our New England states for that tornado risk. It's a level 1, highlighted there in green. It's a low risk, but a few tornadoes are possible, especially the Storm Prediction Center did note that multiple times in their discussion today that a few tornadoes are possible. Moving on to your timeline here, we're going to talk about the timeline nationwide. So you're going to look at your nationwide view first, then we're going to talk about the timeline down in Arizona, then we'll go back to the East Coast. It's hard whenever we have two different areas for storm risks, and we cover such a wide area. So let us know where you're watching from. Are you watching from the East Coast? Do you want us to spend more time on the East Coast? Or are you watching from Arizona? Let us know where you're watching from today. All right, there's your marginal risk out in Arizona right now. What we have is we have a dry day ahead of us until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. After that, storms start to fire in all directions. You can see that storms are firing along Highway 15, all the way down to 17 and I-40, and then down near the border. These storms will be scattered for the most part. We're going to watch for some isolated, stronger storms that are likely to produce strong wind speeds and even large hail. Isolated chance, very low chance for hail, but we'll have to keep an eye on it. Alrighty, moving on to the East Coast. Let's head back out to the coast there. The East Coast, that is, not the West Coast. There you go. There's your marginal risk on the East Coast today where we have, it's a level 1, but I do think that this widespread shower and storm risk is going to lead to more of a wind and a tornado threat. You can see more of those clustered storms up in places like New York and Washington that will cause a potential tornado. Anything that rotates could be a potential tornado. Alrighty, moving on. Let's go to the tropics because I think a lot of people are curious about these two storms out in the Atlantic right now. If we widen our view a little bit, you can pinpoint. There's Humberto and there is AL94, soon to be Imelda. Now let's fast forward. I'm going to skip a few graphics here. Your flood threat today, there is your threat for storms tomorrow. We can always go back to this if you want me to. So let me know in the comments if you want me to go back to the flood threat today. There's your Pacific hurricane. It's category 1 right now. There's Gabrielle. We talked about Gabrielle earlier. All right, let's talk about these next two storms. You're going to hear a lot about these two storms over the next 2 days. Now we've got Humberto, and as you watch the track for Humberto, take a look at the proximity, how close it is to this second storm right here. Okay? You're going to see them. They're going to parallel each other's tracks and move in a very similar direction. So if it gets closer, what we're going to watch for is the interaction between these two storms. And we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. Invest 94L is currently sitting over the islands right now. We've got a 30-mile-per-hour wind with it, so not a tropical storm at the moment. It's almost there. It's close. It's moving to the northwest at about 16 miles an hour, and its pressure not very impressive, a little over 1,000 millibars. Now Humberto, a little bit more impressive. We've got stronger wind speeds with this. At 50 miles an hour, it's moving a bit slower, but in the same direction to the northwest. This area highlighted in red is where Imelda is likely to form. So as it goes into this area highlighted here in red, we've got great conditions for tropical cyclone formation. Let's fast forward here and take a look at what the National Hurricane Center has to say. They're saying over the next 2 days, so over the next 48 hours, we've got a 70% chance for tropical cyclone formation. Pretty impressive. As we head into the weekend, that chance goes up to about a 90% chance. Let's move on to see our tracks here. So I put your spaghetti plots on the board here. What you're going to see, again, is the track, and pay attention to the timeline here. As these storms continue to move to the northwest. Humberto moving slow. What we were hearing from the National Hurricane Center out of this storm is that it's going to have a slow start, but then it's really going to pick up intensity this weekend. So we may see some rapid intensification from this storm. We'll have to keep an eye on this on Saturday and Sunday. This will continue just to hug the islands here, almost to the east coast, by Friday afternoon, turning most likely into a tropical storm as we head into early Saturday morning. So we'll probably get our next named storm in the next 24, maybe 36 hours. Now, a lot can change after that. As we head into Sunday, what we're seeing here is Humberto taking more of a westerly turn, getting closer and closer and closer to what is soon to be Imelda. So these two storms have a really good chance to interact. We're going to have to see what happens as this continues to really hug the East Coast here. Models are disagreeing with this. Do you see how these spaghetti plots are going in different directions? These models, they're disagreeing. One model says we're going to turn back to the northwest. It's going to take a very similar track to Erin, which we saw earlier this year, where it's going to hug the East Coast, but it's never going to make landfall. A few other models are saying that we want this to go right into South Carolina, maybe North Carolina. So that's what these models are saying as we head into early next week. We're talking about Monday into Tuesday, maybe late Monday night. And then models are disagreeing kind of all over the board. What happens after that, we don't know. It's all over the board there. What we do know about Humberto is most likely what will happen here is it's going to take a northwest turn until it turns straight to the north and then curves back to the east. Very, very similar to what Gabrielle did. So really what we have to be watching for here is this AL94, which will most likely soon to be Imelda. That could be our next landfalling storm. We'll have to keep an eye on that there. I hate to show long-term models, but I do like this model. I like how it shows that these storms are interacting with each other. You can see that this one back here, this one's Humberto, it's taking a slower path, but it's a lot stronger. And you can see that from the models there. And then you can see how these storms interact with each other. Did you see that? I wish I would have slowed that down a little bit, and I may be able to on the side of the screen over here. 1 second. Okay, check out how these low pressure systems interact with each other. They get so close that what often happens is they'll take a focal point, a center point right here, and then they'll interact with each other, rotating around that focal point. That effect right there is called the Fujiwara effect, and it's pretty rare, and it's fascinating to see. What we're not talking about here are some of the other upper level processes that are going on. We've got a ridge, we've got a trough. How are these storms going to interact with some of those upper level processes? It's very, very interesting, and it's a very complex system that we may not know more about until it's actually happening. Very, very complex setup right there. Alrighty, we'll move on. I know we got a little nerdy for a minute there. We got into the weeds of the meteorology. We'll move on. Again, the next named storm will be Imelda. After that, we've got Jerry and Karen on the board. We told you guys at the very beginning of hurricane season that we still had plenty of hurricane season left ahead of us, and we were most likely going to get to at least half of the named storms this year. Back on land, I told you temperatures are going to warm back up. That's likely to happen mainly on Saturday, especially for the Midwest and all the way down into the central to southern plains. It's going to stay pretty warm on Sunday as well. We're talking about temperatures above average. So if your average temperature for this time of the year is 75, you may be in the low 80s. Most likely not any record-breaking heat, but a little bit warmer than what you would normally see this time of the year. As we head into the end of September and early October, we're going all the way to October 4th at this point. It looks like temperatures have a high likelihood to be above average here. And for the most part, your rainfall, nothing really stands out to me here. Maybe a little bit drier along the Midwest. I know that you guys need some rain, and a little bit wetter on the West Coast, which I like to see because I like that we are mitigating our fire risk. And there you go. There's your forecast today. Did we miss any questions before I wrap up here? What do we have in the chat? John says, it's interesting. I don't think the Northeast got any, I didn't think that the Northeast got any tornadoes. Yeah, it's rare. It doesn't happen very often. It's very rare for the Northeast to get tornadoes, but we've got a chance today, right? New York, Washington, DC, Baltimore, all in that tornado risk today. It's rare, but it happens. And I think that's our only question. So thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we'll see you back here same time, same place tomorrow. Make sure that you guys follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and give us a call if you're interested in a hail, wind, or tornado map at 855-334-4245, or email us at info@hailtrace.com, or head over to our website, hailtrace.com. All right, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.